On the evening of April 1st, Pitt drove exhausted down the dusty road to the family cottage he shared with his wife, Patricia. After a long 3-hour commute from his last job, he was finally returning home. Patty should have been waiting for him there by now, but he had left later than planned, and now he was driving in the dark. His new role as a traveling college professor often took him away from his wife, so these weekends together were even more welcome. His wife finally got a day off from her demanding job as a nurse and arrived a day early to prepare the family cottage for arrival. Patty was a charming woman with charming brown eyes and a slim but sturdy build. Dressed in a nurse's costume, she often attracted the attention of fans. Pitt first met Patty at his brother Tom's college graduation 7 years ago, when she had just started studying to be a nurse and came to support her friend Marcia, who was also graduating from college. Tom and Marcia were dating, so when both couples went out for dinner, Pitt and Patty immediately became friends. Patty had little intimate experience, and Pitt readily showed her everything she needed. 10 months later, they tied the knot. Pitt was attracted to Patty's magnetic personality. She was always the life of the party and never met strangers. Recently, they discussed the possibility of starting a family and moving out of a rented apartment. "Here it is," he said with a smile, turning off the dirt road leading to a small lake. Arriving at a remote cabin, Pitt was shocked to find that his wife's car was missing. Disappointed by the lack of a cellular signal in the mountains, he decided to call her, but realized that it was useless. Despite the setback, Pitt took out a spare key from a hiding place and went inside. Judging by the dust and silence inside, no one has been here for a long time. At dusk, when the long road to civilization lay ahead, he sat down to wait. While he was thinking about the possibility of a misunderstanding with the time of her arrival, it suddenly dawned on him. Damn, it's already the 1st of April. They always played pranks on each other that day. Maybe she'll show up later, or wait until tomorrow morning. He thought about leaving, but in the end, decided to stay here a little longer. Looking around the house, he realized that there was no food or drinks left in it. Disappointed, he decided to leave. As he was leaving the house, he noticed the headlights on the road. Believing that it was his wife's car, he waited for her to appear. As he watched the red sports car pull up, he noticed a blonde woman driving. Did she take this joke too seriously? He muttered to himself without waiting for an answer. The car stopped at the entrance and the window slowly rolled down. "Are you Pitt Avery?" the girl asked with a playful smile. "Yes, it's me. I was hired to spend the night with you." He chuckled, thinking it was all part of an elaborate April Fool's prank. "Ha ha ha, I'll agree with that. Yes, I am Pitt," he replied with a grin. The woman got out of the car and took a pose. "I'm not kidding. I was really hired to deliver this to you," she said confidently. She handed him a sealed envelope without mentioning that it had been served. He chuckled, still thinking it was all a joke. Pitt opened the envelope and took out a note. "Pitt, my love, first of all, I want to say that today I love you more than ever. I think our marriage is perfect, and I've never wanted anyone else. Despite the numerous courtship of other men, I never once thought about being unfaithful to you, but I must admit that these attempts have become more persistent lately. Recently, a new doctor started working at the university hospital, and I found that I was attracted to him. It was not love, but only a fleeting feeling of lust. I knew I had to do something to get him out of my head. After all, he was married and had a young son, so there was no question of anything more than a passing infatuation. He loved his wife as much as I love you, so I decided to leave town with him for the weekend, hoping that spending time together would help me forget about the desire that existed only in my fantasies. In the spirit of justice, I had to take this step to put everything in its place. I don't want you to have a relationship with another woman, so I ordered Chantel, a girl from the upper class, to give you the same passion as me. Instead of inviting her to our house, I ordered a secluded cabin for the two of you. I will be back home by 6 o'clock on Sunday evening, refreshed and ready to continue our life together. We have to agree never to talk about this weekend and act as if it never happened. I believe you can understand why I feel the need to do this. I believe in the power of our love, which will be able to overcome this and guide us to a happy future together. My heart belongs to you, and only to you. I also want to say I don't have a phone, so please don't try to contact me. He read the letter again and was convinced of its authenticity. Do you have a pen? Pitt asked. Yes, but you don't need to sign it, she replied with a smile. No, but you will have to sign after I write that you delivered this letter to me on behalf of my wife, Patty Avery, and that she paid you for intimate services. But I will give them up, Pitt instructed. You can just sign with your real name. I will need to see your driver's license to confirm your legal identity, Pitt added. I will sign it, but do you understand what you are sacrificing? Chantel giggled and twirled around, showing off her adorable buttocks. He took a pen and wrote down his previous statement. She frowned. Are you sure? He waved her question away. Just be careful on the way home, as there are a lot of animals on the roads at night. And don't tell my wife that I refused, otherwise she will demand a refund, Pitt said. My mouth is sealed, Chantel replied, winking at him. Are you absolutely sure that there is nothing I can do to help you? You look very charming and handsome, Chantel asked. No thanks, I have a lot to do, Pitt replied. Is it okay if I stay the night? I don't want to drive back down the dark road, she asked, presenting her license and signing the papers. He looked at her name on the license and thought about the potential risk. Okay, Sarah Davis, but only on the condition that there will be no jokes and you will live in a separate bedroom. Any attempts at intimacy will lead to you being asked to leave the room, he warned. Wow, she replied. To be honest, I've never done this before, but it's exciting. I took this case to pay for my college tuition. I'm going to get a degree in textile engineering, Sarah Chantel said. It seems my friend is looking for textile engineers. As soon as you graduate from college, give me your resume and I'll see if I can help you, Pitt replied. When she smiled and reached out to hug him, he held out his hand, apologizing for the lack of physical contact. In the evening, they enjoyed food and drinks from 3 bags, which Patty advised her to take with her. They were sitting by the fireplace, and he was talking about how he met his wife in high school, painting a picture of a fairy tale romance that took a sour turn. As they talked, the tension associated with the topic of intimacy melted away, and they easily found a common language. She listened sympathetically to his feelings about betrayal and the story of his hopes for starting a family. After Patty received her master's degree in nursing, they planned to move from a small rented apartment to their own house. When Sarah saw tears welling up in Pitt's eyes, she couldn't help but break her promise not to touch him. Eventually, Pitt broke down and hid his face to hide the tears from her eyes. Despite his best efforts to hide his emotions, when Sarah hugged him, he melted into her arms. There was no hint of lust or intimate desire in their embrace. She was just trying to comfort and soothe his pain. Come on, let it all out, Sarah whispered softly, prompting him to release his emotions and find solace in her presence. Pitt continued to cry for the next few minutes, but eventually stopped and stepped back. I'm not going to. Anyway, he began, but was interrupted. I know. That's what I like about you, Sarah said, smiling. Can I tell my story now? Of course. We have the whole night ahead of us, Pitt replied. She started. I was born into poverty in the Kentucky mountains. My father was a miner, and my mother washed other people's clothes. Despite our circumstances, I did well at school. But since I was 12 years old, I had to take on different jobs to help my family. Even in high school, the struggle continued. While my peers went on dates and parties, I was focused on work and studied hard. Being flat-chested and thin, I didn't attract much attention from guys. Surprisingly, I went to college innocent. Thanks to my high scores in mathematics and science, I received a scholarship and enrolled in a reputable college, but I still had to work to cover expenses and save for a car. When I graduated from the first year of college, changes began to occur in my body, says Sarah. Soon they started asking me out, says Sarah. Pausing to take a sip of the wine they found in the closet, she continued her story. Having no experience with guys, I made a few mistakes, and they took advantage of my naivety. I believed that guys were genuinely interested in me, but then I realized that all they needed was to sleep with me. In the end, I met a guy who turned out to be completely different. He didn't try to kiss me until our third date, and I felt like we were on the same wavelength. Everything was going well until the Christmas holidays. When he went home, he didn't even bother to call me. I thought this was the end of our relationship until he came back to school and started acting like nothing had happened in the last 10 days. It took a few weeks, but eventually I forgave him and we resumed our physical relationship. One night I confessed my love to him, but he didn't answer anything. Although he showed his love for me, he never actually said those words. Then I started to conflict with him. He apologized, explaining that I was his girlfriend here, says Sarah. But the girl he proposed to was waiting for him at home. He admitted that he liked spending time with me, but claimed that he couldn't choose between us. Then I took matters into my own hands and made a scandal for him, Sarah said. Pitt couldn't help but laugh. Yes, right in front of all our friends in the dining room. But this experience has left me with a bitter feeling about relationships and being too close to anyone. I realized that I needed more money, and my roommate suggested that I engage in the provision of intimate services. At first it was a purely platonic relationship, says Sarah. But the amount offered was not enough, and I was not satisfied with intimate relationships. Even though I didn't get enough money, I had enough. But then your wife showed up and offered me $3,000 to spend the weekend with you. She mentioned that you are skilled in bed and have incredible charisma. And here we are, Sarah said, looking at me. I couldn't help but wonder why Patty would do this if I'm really as good in bed as she claims. When I asked, Sarah shrugged and said my wife was probably curious. Patty asked me to help make our date more enjoyable. I think her lover took over most of the expenses, Sarah suggested. They both fell silent, leaning back against the pillows and looking at the coals rising up the chimney. Pitt put his arm around Sarah's shoulders and kissed her on the forehead. Thank you. You've made the worst day of my life a little brighter, he said. She looked into his eyes and noticed, your wife is stupid and reckless to put her relationship with you at risk. I'll tell you, it's hard to find good men in this world. I'd like to find you after this week and start over, Pitt said. Hugging tightly, they fell asleep in each other's arms. The next morning, Sarah woke up to the smell of sizzling bacon and saw Pitt at the stove. It smells amazing, she said. Turning to her, Pitt asked, how do you prefer eggs? Scramble, like in our new life together, she replied with a laugh. He toasted the toast and put the plates on the table. If you want, I'll make coffee, he offered. Yes, please, but I really need to go to the bathroom, she replied, wincing. She went to the nearest door and tried to open it. It's a closet, Pitt said with a grin. Don't make me laugh, she replied, and hurried to the next door on the right, crossing her legs and taking small steps. This is the door, Pitt pointed out. And while you're in the bathroom, please take off all that makeup and let your hair down, Pitt asked. She smiled and quickened her pace. The sound of water filled the room and soon she came out of it, looking more like a simple and natural beauty than a rebel. Wow, you've changed so much, Pitt said admiringly. She unbuttoned her pink lace blouse, allowing it to drape over her skinny jeans. Her complexion was flawless and rosy, and her light brown hair resembled his mother's. It's much more beautiful this way, Pitt said. Why? Sarah asked. Didn't I at least manage to arouse you? Sarah asked with a smile. Absolutely. I'm not completely insensitive to not feel aroused. All I want is to see Sarah, not Chantel, Pitt said. Pitt, you probably always know what to say, Sarah laughed. She attacked the food, for once not caring about her appearance. I can't even remember what bacon tastes like. I'm so hungry, Sarah said. After breakfast, she helped Pitt clean up and took her suitcase. I think it's time for us to say goodbye, Sarah said sadly. Pitt went to the door and stood in her way. I was thinking that my wife paid you to spend the whole weekend with me. And what do you think about it? Pitt asked. You mentioned that there is no question of any intimacy, Sarah replied. I can't bear the thought of waiting for my wife to return after cheating with that despicable doctor. Therefore, I would prefer that you stay with me so that we can get closer and get to know each other better. But I can't have a physical relationship with you because I refuse to stoop to her level, Pitt said. So, what do you suggest we do instead? Sarah asked. I'd love to chat with you, and I think there are some card and board games in the closet near the bedroom that we could play. And we could also go for a walk and maybe even go for a swim, Pitt suggested. But I didn't bring a swimsuit, Sarah said with a smile. I mentioned that we shouldn't make love, but just watching and having fun is not a bad idea, especially since I plan to divorce my wife as soon as we get back, Pitt said. Good. I agree, Mr. Avery, Sarah said. Please call me Pitt. I'd love to chat with you, and I think there are some board games in the closet near the bedroom that we could play. And we could also go for a walk and maybe even go for a swim, Pitt suggested. But I didn't bring a swimsuit, Sarah said with a smile. I mentioned that we shouldn't make love, but just watching and having fun is not a bad idea, especially since I plan to divorce my wife as soon as we get back, Pitt said. Good. I agree, Mr. Avery, Sarah said. Please call me Pitt. And how did you come up with this name, Chantel? Pitt asked. When I was born, my face had wrinkles similar to those of our pug, which amused my parents a lot. They joked that they could give me the nickname Chantel after our dog, and it wasn't the worst idea, Sarah replied. Your face looks pretty smooth now, Pitt teased her. Not knowing who was speaking, Pitt asked, Is it Chantel or Sarah? I'm Chantel, and please don't call me Sarah anymore, Sarah begged. Patty felt When I was born, my face had wrinkles similar to those of our pug, which amused my parents a lot. They joked that they could give me the nickname Chantel after our dog, and it wasn't the worst idea, Sarah replied. Your face looks pretty smooth now, Pitt teased her. Not knowing who was speaking, Pitt asked, Is it Chantel or Sarah? I'm Chantel, and please don't call me Sarah anymore, Sarah begged. Patty felt awkward, wrote a note for her husband and handed it to the employee. Preparing to meet her lover this weekend, she tried to make inquiries and find a girl with a good reputation. It was important for her that they were clean and safe, so finding an inexperienced girl is already a bonus. She didn't want to take any chances when it came to sexually transmitted diseases. According to the plan, Petty's lover was supposed to pick her up around 6 o'clock in the evening. In the morning, he sent Petty she didn't want to take any chances when it came to sexually transmitted diseases. According to the plan, Petty's lover was supposed to pick her up around 6 o'clock in the evening. In the morning, he sent Petty a text message to confirm the time of his arrival at the cottage, shortly before dark. Petty asked Chantel when she planned to arrive at the cottage, and she replied confirming that she would be there shortly after dark. She hesitated to jeopardize her relationship with her lover. He hesitated to jeopardize her relationship with her lover Pitt, but Dr. Evan Peters assured her that if a call girl is expensive, then she will meet all expectations. Petty planned it to be a short-term weekend romance so that she and Pitt could realize their plans to buy a house and start a family. Her parents adored Pitt as if he were their own child, and his parents loved her back. But everything changed for the worse when she began to feel uncomfortable after the arrival of Dr. Evan Peter. You can't wait to get me into bed, can you? Asked Petty. He grinned. Well, I've been feeling horny since this morning, and I need to take care of it before we continue. And by the way, now you can address me as Dr. Evan, he said. Petty's expression became restless. I don't think so. I think it's time for me to leave, she said. Evan chuckled. Patty, 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 I paid you a lot of money to keep your husband occupied while you do what I say. You don't want to disappoint me now, do you? Asked Evan. Realizing that now she would have to do her duty, she felt excited and horrified that she had been asked to do something so disgusting. My husband should not be underestimated. If you say anything bad about him again, our weekend will be ruined. Not in your bed, not anywhere else, Petty said icily. Evan started hurling insults at her husband and dragged her onto the bed. No, please, not there, anywhere but there, she begged. But that wasn't the way out. Listen, if you don't want to satisfy me here, then let's go to the guest bedroom, Evan suggested. Mentally, Petty already regretted that she wanted to spend 2 days off with him. When they entered the guest bedroom, he began to undress. Confused, she asked, "What are you doing?" He replied, "I thought you'd want to explore and feel my body first." She watched him undress, showing off his even tan-toned stomach and strong biceps. But in some places, he looked average or below average. Completely naked, he lay down on the bed, put his hands behind his neck, and asked, "Well?" It wasn't as she had imagined. A romantic evening filled with roses, gentle touches, massage, and lots of foreplay turned into the fact that she simply fulfilled his desires. Closing his eyes, he began to belittle her, mocking the fact that her husband would never be able to give her as much pleasure as he did. The thought of spending 3 days and 2 nights with this man made her skin crawl. When they were done, she hurried into the bathroom and closed the door, trying to wash away the memories of what had happened. Taking a deep breath, Petty returned to the bedroom and saw Evan still naked on the bed. "It's over between us. I told you not to say anything about Pitt," Petty said, grabbing her clothes and leaving the room. "Damn," Evan said, getting dressed quickly. Evan knew he shouldn't have gone too far before taking her to the resort, but he knew he still charmed Pitty. Patty was looking out the kitchen window and tears were streaming down her face. She couldn't help but think that her husband, whom she loved, was lying in bed with another woman, exploring new territory that they had never dared to enter. As evening approached, Patty realized that it was too late for self-pity. Her reverie was broken by the sound of Evan's footsteps approaching from behind. "Patty, my love, I'm devastated by what happened. I'm very sorry," he said. "I mistakenly thought that you wanted me to control you, but I assure you I will not bring up this topic anymore. Let's start over and have the most unforgettable weekend for both of us," Evan said. As he gently massaged her shoulders, she found comfort in his touch and leaned closer to him. "I don't want you to be overbearing. I just want to share the love with you," Petty said. His hands moved from her shoulders to her tender breasts, making her think about asking him to leave. But she realized that she had crossed the line. "Let's not talk anymore until we get to the resort," Evan suggested. After a long walk, Pitt noticed how Sarah began to take off her jeans to go swimming. Turning away, she blushed. He chuckled. "You must be joking. How many men have seen you naked?" Pitt asked. "You're such an idiot," she replied, hurriedly pulling on her jeans. "I told you that Chantel left and only Sarah was left," she said. With tears in her eyes, Sarah ran out of the house. After running 100 feet, she felt his hand on her shoulder. "Sarah, please stop. I'm really sorry," Pitt said regretfully. "I'm sorry that I laughed and made that remark. It is clear to me that you are no longer Chantel. It was a pleasure to meet Sarah, and I want to get to know her better," Pitt said with regret in his eyes. Sarah wiped away her tears and nodded her forgiveness. "May I ask if men have ever paid you to make love?" Pitt asked. "I want to be honest with you. You were supposed to be my last date in this case. But everything changed after meeting you. Before that, I didn't have many positive experiences with guys," Sarah replied. "Let's start with a clean slate," Pitt suggested, and held out his hand as a sign of reconciliation. Sarah nodded and squeezed his hand. "Why don't we take a walk around this amazing lake?" suggested Pitt. They agreed and set off hand in hand, sharing their preferences and interests along the way. Having discovered a common love for Elton John and the CCR band, as well as a passion for cooking and Mexican cuisine, they became even closer. Upon returning, both were sweating from the heat. "Sarah, how about you freshen up in your underwear?" he suggested. "Of course," she replied readily. Without thinking, he turned away while she was changing and heard the sound of her approaching footsteps. "Ha ha, come and catch me if you can," Pitt teased, and then quickly turned around, and taking off his jeans and t-shirt, ran to the water. Sarah, wearing a tiny pink bra and matching thong that made her practically naked, gasped as she took her first cold step into the water. "Oh, how cold it is!" she exclaimed. When Pitt dived towards her, their bodies collided and they both sank into the water. Wasting no time, he pulled her out of the water, and his strong arms lifted her easily. Sarah swallowed water, although she did not go deep. Pitt quickly told her to clear her throat while hitting her on the back. Sarah quickly followed his advice. She continued to cough until he finally calmed down, then smiled and pulled him to her for a passionate kiss. Their underwear was soaked, but it didn't matter. Soon they forgot about the cold water as their lips explored each other and their hands wandered over their bodies. "I have flowers and champagne in the trunk," Pitt whispered. Evan's quiet voice filled the car as they drove down the road towards the resort. Suddenly the phone vibrated, and Patty cursed to herself, realizing that she had forgotten to leave it at home. She looked down, expecting to see Pitt's name on the screen, but found that it was just a spam call. She hurriedly turned off her phone, not wanting it to track her location through the app. Trying to calm her thoughts, she imagined Pitt with the stunning Chantel, and a wave of regret and guilt overwhelmed her. Tears streamed down Patty's cheeks, and a familiar song sounded in her head. The words of the song echoed in her mind. "It's too late to turn back." Evan entered the building, checked in, and soon drove up to the house. "We got there, beautiful," he said, noticing that Patty was wiping her eyes. Worried, he asked, "Are you all right?" She couldn't meet his gaze. "Evan, I can't go through with this. I'm so sorry. I'll pay you back for Chantel," Patty said. "Damn," he muttered to himself, holding back his disappointment as he leaned back in his chair. "I understand, but the situation has already escalated. Now he knows about your presence next to me, so you can make the most of it. Either he will have an intimate relationship with her, or he will react explosively. In any case, it is better to remain calm and develop a strategy for meeting with him on Sunday evening. I assure you, I won't put pressure on you if you don't like something. And if you want to leave tomorrow, I'll be happy to take you back," Evan said softly. "Really? Will you take me home?" Petty asked. "Of course, so that you don't get upset and blab about it at work," Evan replied. "No, I won't be upset, and I certainly won't tell anyone," Petty said. "I don't want anyone from work to tell my wife," Evan said. "Okay, I'll spend the night here and think about extending my stay until Sunday, but we have to avoid any inappropriate behavior," Petty said. He chuckled, hoping that he would still have the opportunity to explore this woman's sinuous body. And at the same time, for the first time, he thought that an angry husband might come for his wife. It was a stupid risk. After their kiss, Sarah playfully pulled away and, grinning, headed for the house. With the index finger of her right hand, she beckoned Pitt to follow her, a mischievous smile playing on her lips. As he approached, she couldn't help but notice the wet underpants sticking to his body, which confirmed Patty's words about his virtues. Despite her stunning appearance, she knew she didn't fit the stereotype of a textile engineer. Intelligence and beauty are a powerful combination, but she couldn't ignore the negative aspects of her past. Spending time with many men for money was a part of her life that she couldn't get rid of. But at that moment, Sarah felt a spark of hope. Maybe this meeting will be different. Maybe he'll see her past and appreciate her for who she really is. And maybe she can finally put her old life behind her and start over. They hurried into the house, and while Pitt lit a fire in the fireplace, Sarah took some towels. As soon as the flames flared up, he turned around and saw that she was standing in front of him completely naked, and holding out a large white towel to him. "Wipe me off and I'll do the same for you," Sarah offered. His hands trembled as he gently stroked the towel over her skin. "It feels amazing," Sarah murmured with satisfaction. Sarah had never experienced such intense arousal with a man before. When Pitt ran a towel over her smooth back, stopping at her small cleavage, she couldn't help but admire his touch. Sarah was truly stunning. "You're so beautiful," Pitt whispered, running his fingers over her body. She sighed softly and turned to meet his gaze as he leaned closer. Despite her requests, she never allowed men to go that far with her. When his eyes closed and his lips leaned forward, she felt that he was unique. Evan and Patty returned from dinner when it was already nightfall. She turned on her phone, hoping to get a message from Pitt, but found nothing. "He's probably enjoying the gift," Evan remarked, standing behind her and gently stroking her shoulders. Chantel had a charm that could captivate almost anyone. Patty closed her eyes and relaxed. "Did you have an intimate relationship with Chantel?" Patty asked. "No. She made it clear that she had not entered into an intimate relationship with any of her acquaintances. My colleagues believe that she acts as an escort at events and nothing more. It seems that she only agreed to make love to your husband because of the amount I offered. If I hadn't known that she worked in such a service industry, I might well have had feelings for her. But thank God that's not the case," Evan said with a grin. Patty gasped in shock. That was the last thing she wanted. He couldn't fall in love with her. When his hands moved lower and began to caress her, she quickly pushed him away and turned away, feeling awkward. "I want to go home," she said firmly. "Patty, don't leave me like this," he begged, taking her hand and holding it to him. "The damage is done, so let's just have some fun and figure out how to get Pitt back. I feel responsible and I want to help. Come here," he urged. Evan pulled Patty to him, but she pulled away, feeling the need to confess. "I have to call him and explain that we didn't have intimacy," Patty said. "I paid him for a girl for the whole weekend, so relax and calm down," Evan said irritably. "God, I hope Pitt forgives me. He has to come home tomorrow and I know he loves me so much that he'll realize it was a mistake," Patty said in horror. "I'm sure everything will work out," Evan said. His lies weighed on Patty, but there was nothing she could do about it. Sarah leaned over and kissed Pitt gently on the neck, offering to just enjoy each other's company. "But first I need to take a shower. Would you like to join me?" Sarah offered. Pitt couldn't resist the urge to lather and rinse her gorgeous body. "Yes," he replied without hesitation. Pitt knew that by giving in to a playful mood and affectionate gestures, he would eventually win her over. Sarah had never felt such a strong desire. In a cozy log cabin with a man she admired and desired, she felt a longing she had never felt before. Even if there were no financial incentives, she would willingly spend the night with him. Pitt bent down and began to kiss Sarah gently, hot water flowing over them, filling his body with excitement. Sarah felt a rush of warmth. Beads of sweat trickled down her forehead. Pitt's touch left traces of incredible sensations wherever his hands touched. It was exactly what she wanted so much, to feel the touch, kisses, and caresses of another man on her body. "It's an amazing feeling," Sarah thought, purring with pleasure and forgetting about her recent excitement. Pitt pinned her against the wall and began kissing her passionately. And then they made love. Sarah woke up first, finding herself naked and pressed against Pitt's hard body. "How lucky I am," she thought to herself. Sarah spent just one night with the man of her dreams and found herself experiencing emotions she had never experienced before. When Pitt opened his eyes, he saw that beautiful hair cascaded down his stomach. After a passionate night, they packed up their belongings and left the cottage. As they parted, Pitt mentioned that his wife would not be back until noon the next day. "As soon as I get settled in a new house and get my financial accounts in order, maybe we'll rent a room in the city. I really hope that you will be sympathetic to this idea," Pitt said with a smile, leaning over to kiss Sarah. I can't wait to get to know you better too, but my neighbor is out of town for a few weeks. Why don't you come over and we can spend some time together? I don't think you should be home when they get back, Sarah said. I don't want to be a burden to you, Pitt replied. But I really want you to be here so we can continue our conversation, Sarah said. With that, they packed up their belongings and continued on their way along the winding forest road. Saturday morning flew by when she was already at Pitt's house. Knowing that he was safe, she didn't have to worry about keeping an eye on him. Entering the apartment through the garage door, he jokingly shouted, "Honey, I'm home." Sarah, who didn't like his joke, whispered to herself, "Let's hope she doesn't answer." While he was busy cutting Patty out of his life, she wandered around the house. Pausing in front of their wedding photo hanging over the fireplace, she couldn't help but imagine herself in the place of an unfaithful wife. Pitt was busy working in his home office when Sarah entered the master bedroom and looked into the spacious dressing room. She wondered why Petty was willing to risk everything for a short fling with a handsome guy. "Take whatever you want," Pitt muttered, coming up behind her and lightly kissing her earlobe. "I want you right now, and in this bed," Pitt said. Her heart started pounding, but she hesitated and answered, "I thought you understood. No emotional intimacy." Pitt nodded. "You're right. I just wanted to get back at my wife." It will be a kind of greeting when Petty returns home, so to speak, saying goodbye to her. Pitt was embarrassed. Sarah smiled when she heard that Pitt hoped for a relationship in the future. "Why don't you undress and get on the bed while I put on one of those stingy negligés?" suggested Sarah. It was strange to lie on the marital bed and wait for another beautiful woman to join him, not Patty. His anger overcame his sadness over the ruined marriage. But just a few days before, she and Petty had started talking about having children. Pitt realized that it was better to avoid meeting Petty until he calmed down, if at all possible. His gaze shifted to the closet door, where Sarah appeared in a nightgown that reminded him of Patty on their wedding night. It was wonderful. This time, their touching and kissing were more deliberate. The kisses were slow and pleasant, not hurried. Despite the temptation, he realized that it was extremely important for him not to repeat Patty's mistake. After making the bed, Pitt threw all their photos together, including the wedding album, into the trash. Noticing the diamond engagement ring he had given Petty on the bedside table, Pitt decided to put it in his pocket. After all, there was a jewel that had once belonged to his grandmother. He left his wedding ring untouched, deciding not to leave a note because he believed that he had nothing to say to the insidious deceiver. That evening, Patty categorically refused to let Dr. Evan near her. Despite his pleas, she still decided to stay until Sunday. Her thoughts were preoccupied with thoughts of marriage, and it was clear that she was not enjoying life, but simply fulfilling her duties. On Sunday, around noon, Evan drove up to her house. "Do you see his car?" Petty asked, looking around. When Patty didn't see the car, she realized that Pitt must have stayed the night at the cottage. She breathed a sigh of relief and took Evan's hand. "I'm sorry for ruining our weekend," she said. "I love my husband too much to let this happen again." "I fully understand and share the desire to never betray my wife again," Evan said dryly. There was no trace of his flattering speeches. Patty, afraid of being caught, refrained from kissing goodbye and focused on the door of the condominium. That's it, she thought. It's time to focus on starting a family and growing old with her husband. While sending her small suitcase to the laundry to get rid of any evidence of adultery, she did not notice the basket with Pitt's dirty clothes left over from his recent trip. Petty was completely absorbed in preparing for the upcoming conversation with Pitt. She didn't even notice that the shower floor was wet and that their photos were missing until she opened the drawer of the bedside table and saw his wedding ring instead of her own. Suddenly it dawned on her and she screamed, "No!" "Sarah, you don't have to do this. I can get a hotel room for a few days," Pitt said. They sat down next to each other on the sofa, his hand gently resting on her shoulder. She took his hand in hers and rested her head on his chest. "You don't need to be alone, and I really enjoy spending time with you," Sarah assured. "Incredibly, I have a strange feeling that we know each other," he whispered, bending down and kissing her gently. It wasn't a kiss filled with desire, but it radiated comfort and tenderness. "You have become a guiding light for me in the most difficult moments," Pitt said. "Why didn't you take the money for this weekend because you need it?" Pitt asked. "I'll find where to get the money to pay for everything. I don't need it," Sarah replied proudly. "Even if I refused your services, you didn't have to stay. But you decided to stay by my side, and I really appreciate it," Pitt said. He bent down for another kiss, but was interrupted by the ringing of the phone. "That's her, isn't it? Are you going to answer?" Sarah asked. "No, I have no desire to talk to her," Pitt replied, and deleted the message she left. Patty knew that the only way to save her marriage was to cheat. She called Pitt on his phone and left a message when he didn't pick up the phone. "Pitt, darling, please call me back. I know you're upset, but Dr. Evan and I didn't have any intimacy. We were playful, kissing and touching each other, but nothing more. Maybe he wanted more, but I stopped him. I admit my mistake, and despite the fact that you spent time with a girl from Intimate Services, I forgive you. I came home early today and found your wedding ring. And I also found the bride's nightgown on the floor in the closet. Please assure me that you did not allow this girl to wear it. These clothes are sacred to our marriage. I do not know where you are, but I beg you to come home. I love you now and forever. Yours, Petty," she finished, and hung up. Exhausted from the ordeal with Evan, she was looking forward to meeting Pitt. Deciding to rest, she lifted the blanket on their shared bed. She screamed in shock at the sight of the rumpled sheet and guessed why the bed was in such a state. Petty promised herself not to make love in their shared bed, believing that this would help preserve their relationship. But now her hopes have been dashed, as none of her visions of a happy ending have come true. Discouraged, she took a blanket from the closet and went downstairs to sleep on the couch. When she woke up in the dark, she found that everything was illuminated only by the soft light of the porch lamp. Checking her phone in the hope of getting a reply from Pitt, she found a message from Evan. She was unsure whether Pitt had given up or resorted to drastic measures. Anxious thoughts whirled through her head. Is it worth worrying? Patty called Evan without asking about his whereabouts. "Pitt disappeared without a trace, and there was no news from me. But he was at home and left his wedding ring in the nightstand," Patty said in a panic. "Damn it, Patty, we risk losing everything, even our jobs, so prepare for the consequences," Evan said angrily. "Could this be true?" Petty said in horror. "Did he really give away his ring, so he's angry?" said Evan. "It looks like he brought Chantel here, slept with her in our bed, and threw our photos in the trash." "Perhaps this is his last act of revenge," Patty suggested. "In the case of Pitt, I think we should expect more shocks," Evan said quietly. "I texted him that we didn't have an intimate relationship, so maybe you'd like to use that excuse with your wife," Petty suggested. After hanging up the phone, Evan sat down at the table and watched his son running around the backyard trying to catch fireflies. He was sure that Patty's husband would agree to change partners if he got a beautiful companion in return. But it turned out that he was wrong. The next day, Patty contacted Pitt's parents to find out about his whereabouts. They didn't understand anything and asked why she didn't know anything. Disappointed, she hung up the phone and called her brother Mike, because she and Pitt were best friends, and he definitely should have known. "Hi, sis. How are you?" Mike asked. "Have you seen Pitt?" Petty asked bluntly. "Unfortunately, I haven't received any messages from him." "Wait, what's going on?" Mike asked excitedly. But Petty quickly hung up the phone. Later, when she went to the store, she found that her credit card was blocked. It was now clear that Pitt no longer wanted to maintain any relationship with her and had no plans to communicate. Patty sent him 2 more text messages and left voice messages, but received no reply. Patty dialed the number of the dean of the Pitt faculty at the university. an old acquaintance of hers. "Roger, this is Patty. Have you talked to Pitt?" she asked. There was a slight pause before Roger answered. "Patty, I don't want to get involved." "What did he tell you?" Patty asked. "All I know is that he had personal problems and asked for some rest," Roger explained. "Is he really okay?" Patty asked anxiously. It was clear from his voice that Pitt was not in the best of moods. "Goodbye, Patty," Roger said abruptly and ended the conversation. "I need a week to rest and think about my next steps," Pitt told Sarah. "How about we go to Silver's and have a nice steak?" Pitt asked. "Do you mind if we're seen together?" "What if someone recognizes us?" Sarah asked worriedly. "I don't care about that anymore. Why don't you put on some nice clothes to accompany me?" Pitt asked with a smile. Sure enough, when they entered the restaurant, Pitt noticed one of Patty's colleagues waiting for a table. For a moment he thought about leaving, but then decided not to bother with the scandal and let the rumors run wild. It was only when she turned around that she noticed Pitt. Judging by the look of shock on her face, she knew that Patty had spent the weekend with Dr. Evan. "Oh my God," was all she could say. "Hello, Darlene. How are things with David?" Pitt asked. David, her husband, was not the man standing next to her. "He's in Europe for a couple of weeks now, and this is Jack. He came to our department a few months ago, around the same time as Dr. Evan," Darlene said nervously. Jack's smile grew even wider when he said, "Oh, we came here with a whole train." Darlene walked over to Jack and took his hand. "Jack, our table is ready. Let's go." "Goodbye, Pitt," Darlene said over her shoulder. Sarah was also involved in this intrigue. It turned out that Patty and Dr. Evan's secret affair had been revealed and would become the #1 news item in their hospital. Patty was inconsolable after her parents found out about everything. They had a serious conversation with Pitt's parents, as a result of which all four were concerned about the current situation. She had to interrupt the conversation to drown out the pain of losing the man who had captured her heart. An hour later, the phone rang, and she prayed it was Pitt. It turned out to be Darlene. "Patty, how was your weekend?" Darlene asked. "It was terrible. I tried to push it all away, but it was too late. The intimacy was decent, but not as amazing as I had hoped," Patty replied. "What about you and Jack?" Patty asked. Darlene hesitated before replying, "Well, tonight should be the start of something new. I'm calling because Pitt just walked into Silver with an amazing girl," Darlene said in a loud whisper. "I can't believe she must be the girl we hired. He no longer wears an engagement ring and has canceled our credit cards. Why did I let Evan convince me to hire her? Because he doesn't want to talk to me." "I'm coming to you. I'll be there in 15 minutes, Patty said. Sarah, picking up the menu and pretending to read it, said, "This Darlene is looking at us all the time. She's on the phone, probably calling your wife." "I prefer not to call her my wife. The letter she wrote broke my heart. So, Sarah, let's talk about you. Have you met anyone recently who has caught your attention?" Pitt asked, moving on to another topic. "I'm still not sure. He seems like a decent man, is great in bed and suits me. I'm hoping for a perfect match," Sarah replied. She grinned, twining her small right hand with his big left, and they looked at each other with adoring eyes. Suddenly, Patty's scream pierced the air. "Get away from my husband and get your dirty hands off him!" Sarah and Pitt were caught off guard and too shocked to react when Patty's hand reached for Sarah's face. Pitt intervened just in time, grabbing Patty's wrist and twisting it behind her back. "Stop it immediately," Pitt ordered. There was silence in the restaurant. All eyes turned to the sudden commotion. Patty's body went limp, and Pitt had to quickly pick her up before she lost consciousness. Darlene, the nurse, ran up to Patty and asked everyone to leave her alone until she asked for water and a clean towel. A cold towel brought from the bar helped Patty recover. Confused at first, she eventually recognized her husband, Pitt. "Pitt, my love, I'm here and I have your ring," she whispered, relieved to be back with him. "It was a misunderstanding. I've never slept with Evan, I swear," Patty said. "It's okay that you slept with her. I forgive you, Pitt," Patty said, giving Chantel a menacing look. Sit down and drink some water, Darlene said, handing her a glass. Darlene looked around the room for Jack, but he was nowhere to be seen. She took a sip of water and watched Pitt approach Sarah. "Come on, Sarah," Pitt said. "Her name isn't Sarah. Her name is Chantel, and she's a damn piece of trash," Patty muttered to herself. Patty grabbed a glass of water and picked it up, intending to throw it at Sarah. Before she could throw the glass, Pitt stood in front of Sarah, taking a blow to the upper left side of his body. The glass didn't break until it hit the ground, and Pitt flinched from the impact. With a sharp glance at Patty, he pulled Sarah away from the broken glass. Evening manager Sean filmed the entire incident on his smartphone, and Pitt recognized him as he was leaving. "Please send me a copy of this video." "Do you have my phone number?" Pitt asked, catching up with the manager. "Yes, I wrote it all down." "Should I call the rescue service?" the manager asked. "They're already here. I dialed the emergency number when the woman fainted," the receptionist said. "What happened?" the paramedic asked, approaching Patty, who was sitting on the floor next to Darlene. "She fainted," Darlene explained. "I'm a nurse, and she has an elevated pulse. We need to measure her blood pressure," Darlene added. "It looks like she injured her right elbow and head in the fall," the paramedic said. While the paramedic assessed Patty's condition, her friend Darlene took care of Pitt, who was suffering from pain in his shoulder, where the glass hit. The bartender was cleaning up the broken glass. "Pitt, darling, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to offend you," Patty sobbed. "Let's go home and I'll fix it over the weekend." "I think you've caused enough trouble for one day," Pitt replied sternly. "You have until tomorrow evening to pack your things and leave the apartment. It's time to hire a lawyer because our relationship is over," Pitt said firmly. "Sir, you need to go to the emergency room immediately and get an X-ray," the female paramedic advised. "It looks like your collarbone is broken," she added. Darlene called Patty's brother Mike to come and talk to her brother, who did not want to go to the hospital where she worked. They were well aware of the gossip that could spread. Mike arrived 10 minutes later and found that Pitt and Sarah had already left. "Oh my God, Mike! Pitt just went to the hospital with the girl I hired. I accidentally hit him with a glass. He told me not to come home," Patty sobbed on her brother's shoulder. "What? Your words don't make any sense. I thought you only had bruises on your arm, but I don't see any marks on your head. Is there something else that hurts?" Mike asked in confusion. "Only the heart. I just lost the person I loved most in the world," Pitty said bitterly. Pitt already had enough problems with Patty, who was determined not to give a divorce in order to be with Sarah. After Patty threw a glass of water at him, he successfully obtained a restraining order against her. Petty calmed down when he threatened to make public the letters and messages she sent him. It was obvious that he and Dr. Evan had hired a girl for Pitt to make love to her in exchange for spending time together. Because of his arrogance, Pitt was able to prove the adultery charge, but Petty was not. Sarah returned the money to the scammers for their services. All the evidence turned out to be enough for the judge to refuse to pay alimony and ruled in favor of Pitt, leaving him most of the property. Since this was Dr. Evans's second novel, his wife ended up with a gold mine, and he was left with nothing. Evan lost his job at the hospital and started working the night shift at the local Pharmacy Express. As expected, Patty had a nervous breakdown, and it took her more than a year to realize that her marriage to Pitt was over. Despite Sarah's attempts to date other men, none of them were able to fill the void left by Pitt. Her main mistake was agreeing to his wife's terms, and as a result, I fell in love with Pitt. Sarah did well in college and moved to North Carolina to escape the judgmental stares and hurtful ridicule. She lived in the same apartment with a classmate. Sarah got a job as an engineer and was happy in her position. No sooner had she returned home than she was distracted from her thoughts by a knock on the door. Assuming it was a neighbor, she was stunned when she opened the door and saw Pitt standing on the threshold with a stunning bouquet of pink roses. A postcard with her name, Sarah, was attached to the flowers. A year has passed since their brief meeting, and since then they have hardly spoken. Confused and shocked, She couldn't help but wonder how Pitt had managed to find her. It turned out that he had hired a detective to keep an eye on her. It turned out that Sarah hadn't dated anyone this year. He, on the other hand, was focused on finalizing the divorce before thinking about what lay ahead. Despite the attention from other women, he couldn't get rid of the memories of his past relationship with Patty. Thinking about Sarah always brought a smile to his face, so he decided to take a chance. When he approached her, he introduced himself as Pitt, and his warm smile instantly won her over. Sarah decided to play along with Pitt. "How do you know my name, sir? And how do you know where I live? Is this an April Fool's joke?" she asked, although she wanted to throw herself into his arms and wrap her legs around him. "You see, I was driving through Kentucky, stopped and asked a nice man at a gas station if he knew a beautiful blonde Sarah Davis who lives nearby. I told him that her father was a miner and her mother did laundry. An elderly man said that his brother Samuel Davis is a retired miner." Pitt began to tell with feeling. "You probably mean my niece Sarah Suey, who works as a major engineer in North Carolina," a woman who came up to us asked. "Why are you asking?" the old man asked Pitt. "I need to talk to your brother," Pitt replied. "Perhaps I should warn him to get his gun ready," the older man replied. Sarah and Pitt laughed at his story. "No, it's not a joke," Pitt assured her. "I talked to your father and got his consent," he said. Sarah's eyes filled with tears of joy, and at that moment, her smile could light up an entire football stadium. Patty never coped with deep depression after the divorce. She became a hermit, hiding from everyone in a small rented apartment. Only her parents visited her. She didn't want to see the rest. Patty kept saying the same thing over and over. "I'm sorry, Pitt." As a result, Patty's condition deteriorated significantly, and she was sent to a psychiatric clinic for treatment. And even 2 years after her divorce from Pitt, her mental health has only worsened. If Patty had known how her life would change, and she had agreed to spend the weekend with Evan, everything would have been different. But it was already too late.